And joining me now to remember his close friend is Congressman Jim Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina. Congressman, just tell me about the last time you spoke with John Lewis.
I spoke with John last Saturday. We chatted on the phone. He was lucid, a bit weak, but we expressed love for each other. And I asked him to stop talking, and I would do the talking. But it's a good call.
You know, during this moment that we've been in on social justice, his voice, it's been a voice I think we've all been yearning to hear, and we got to see him at, I think his last public appearance was at the Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. I'm sure you've thought about what his voice could be adding right now. What's this moment mean what has this moment meant for John Lewis? Because I know you've talked with him quite a bit about this moment.
Yes, we did. We talked about how surprised we were at the breakthrough that Black Lives Matter had. It reminded us a little bit of our breakthrough back in the 1960s. And the thing that we talked about was the fear that this movement, as successful as it was being, could very well be jeopardized by sloganeering. John and I were always talking about how the sit-in movement got taken away from us, how we woke up one morning and all the headlines were "Burn, baby, burn," how people lost sight of our purpose. And we were very concerned that would happen again, and which is the reason I spoke out so forcefully when people were chasing the headline of "Defund the Police." I did not want to see the success of this movement get taken away with that kind of sloganeering. So John and I talked about that because we always felt that we could have been much more successful back in the 60s if we had not allowed headlines to get in the way of headway.
You know, it's interesting. I remember you did it, I think, with me. You were very forceful about this early on, and you talked about this. Tell young African Americans and young protesters right now what John Lewis, that moment that you guys could have made a decision to go one way and you didn't. Explain that.
Well, you know, in the 1960s, the movement started, of course, I call it the student movement. I never called it the civil rights movement because the civil rights movement is underway in this country forever. It was a student movement, and we started that on February 1, 1960, and John became chair of SNCC. Later on, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. We organized in October of 1960, and we were integrating the lunch counters, getting off the back of the bus, integrating schools. Things were going very, very well. Of course, some people thought it was going too fast. Some people thought it was not going fast enough. Well, the people who didn't think we were going fast enough started to move towards less nonviolence and too much more direct action. And that's where Burn, Baby, Burn came from. And then all of a sudden, people who had been coalescing around that movement started to dissipate. And before we knew it, there was this overthrow of John Lewis. He was chair at the time they took over. And look what happened. John Lewis stayed the course. Many of us stayed loyal to Martin Luther King Jr.'s student or the so-called nonviolent action. John internalized it. I practiced it, but he lived it. And John was such a force I don't know anybody else who was that great a force in the movement.
You know, it's been interesting to see so many people from both sides of the aisle, but I want to focus here on a lot of Republicans have gone out of their way, and I think it's been meaningful and heartfelt. It's there. You know, explain to me, I mean, John Lewis never seemed to, I guess he couldn't taste bitter. He never was bitter. And he opened, it seemed like he would open his arms to anybody that asked, no matter how checkered their past might be on race relations.
That's quite true. And John often got in some uncomfortable moments because he was just so kind to everybody. He really believed that he should live out the scripture. He wasn't an ordained minister. I'm a preaching kid, and we talk scripture a lot. He internalized so much of the goodness. You know, a lot of people talk about Alexis de Tocqueville's attribute. There's a little saying attributed to him that I don't think he ever really made because I can't find it, that America is great because its people are good. And if the people of America ever cease to be good, America will cease to be great. Was John, he personified the goodness of this country. And I do believe that that's what the fight is all about now, restoring America's goodness. John believed in that. And I really think that we would honor him, and we should honor him, by creating a new Voting Rights Act to replace the 1965 Act that was gutted by the Supreme Court decision in Shelby v. Holder 7 years ago. And the Supreme Court gave us a roadmap, and we followed that roadmap. Right. So when I get back, I'm going to ask the leadership of the House to consider reintroducing that bill that passed since H.R. 4, I believe, reintroducing that bill, name it the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act of 2020. And let's send it over to the Senate. And then Mitch McConnell and the president can demonstrate their real respect for the life and legacy of John Lewis by passing that bill in the Senate and the president signing it. And let's have our election this year in honor of John Robert Lewis.
That'd be quite a 2020 achievement in his name. I want to talk about the different ways people want to honor him. A lot of people, if you've probably seen it already on social media, say it's time for the Edmund Pettus Bridge, for that bridge to be, for that name to change. You know, there's been different debates about that. Let it be named after a segregationist and a racist. Let people understand that. But now a lot of people think it is time to name it after John Lewis. Where are you, sir?
I think they'll take a nice picture of that bridge with Pettus's name on it, put it in a museum somewhere dedicated to the Confederacy, and then rename that bridge and repaint it, redecorate it, the John R. Lewis Bridge. I believe that will give the people of Selma something to rally around. I believe that will make a statement for people in this country that we do believe in that pledge, that vision of this country that's in the last phrase of the pledge, with liberty and justice for all. Edmund Pettus was a grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. To take his name off that bridge and replace it with a good man, John Lewis, the personification of the goodness of America rather than the honor, someone who disrespected individual freedoms.
Jim Clyburn, I'm sorry for the loss of your friend. I know it's something that unfortunately a lot of his friends and family knew was coming sooner rather than later, but it doesn't make it any easier. I can tell you this is a memorial service that I think the entire country could use right now together. And so I don't know where we're going to do it, where it's going to happen. Maybe you have an idea, but I'm sure you think the country could use something like this right now as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
And thank you for sharing a few minutes with us, sir. Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.